This is Sportswatch on 6 News. I'm Leo Puglisi. Welcome into a very, very big Sportswatch episode. It is A-League Men Grand Final week. It's Melbourne Derby week. Who could have scripted a better grand final here? Tin, you wins with me. Tin, Auckland's been the story of the whole year. Auckland has been the story of the whole year. What we have gotten now is just one of those grand finals that, again, you could not have scripted. The chances of this happening seem low, really low a few months ago. They seem low going into the second semi-final leg. And then Auckland loses. And we've now got a Derby grand final. I mean, who could have wanted anything better than this?
I mean, I think a lot of people were discussing it. This is probably one of the best case scenarios for the league. I mean, obviously, there's been a lot of chat in recent years about, whether the A-League itself has, whether it ever reached back to those, those glory periods it had in the mid 2010s, the late 2000s, that sort of thing. But I think a Melbourne Derby grand final matchup, even though you could argue maybe they're not the two best teams in the competition, or maybe, maybe there could have been more entertaining matchups. You can't deny this is probably the matchup that the A-League needed to stay sort of, in mainstream attention and, to start capturing some more mainstream attention. Because, I mean, when you factor all the events out in Melbourne on in the weekend this week, I mean, this might be the biggest one. I mean, there's very little AFL, very little other sport for it to compete with. This is probably the hugest event that the A-League has had for many, many years.
Yeah, looking at my fixture, unless I've gotten it wrong, I don't think there actually is any AFL games on the Saturday, which is just so amazingly timed. I mean, just imagine if you had a Collingwood Carlton Saturday night game or something, right? It would be awful, right? Not just accounting for basic things like public transport, but also the casuals. And you need casuals to some extent. Any competition does. I think the A-League maybe more so. You wouldn't be able to bring them in if you've got these two competing things. But no, this is Saturday in Melbourne is the A-League's day. It is just completely focused for them. And you're right. I mean, we've seen these headlines coming in from other media who haven't necessarily covered the league week by week as we have and as a few others have as well. And it has just been, look, I mean, that's amazing to see. Everyone wants that. The ticket sales sold out almost immediately for Victory Active, very soon after for City Active. General admission, I think that was gone almost immediately as well when that came on yesterday afternoon, which is something. And look, people talk about where these games should be played. Should it be at Marvel? Of course, you and I both know, you especially, about the controversy regarding the Sydney Grand Final deal and that not happening. And you could, of course, imagine what would be happening with the Melbourne Derby Grand Final in Sydney. But this is really perfect. Saturday night, you have no other competition from the AFL. The two Melbourne teams immediately sold out. I think it's pretty clear because we're there. Lachlan Sheriff Shezza will be there as well. That this atmosphere wise, forget the performance of the teams. Atmosphere wise, it's going to be incredible.
I mean, yeah, obviously it's what makes football probably the best, well, one of the best sports in the world, and it's probably its biggest point of difference in the country as well as the atmosphere. And I think we're going to see that not just for the 2 hours, 2.5 hours, 3 hours, however long it takes on the pitch, but outside of the ground as well. I mean, you've seen it in places like Europe, when a big team comes to play, their big games, you see the whole city sort of gets transformed by the sport. We see it happen here, to be honest, with things like the AFL and especially on like AFL Grand Final Day. And I think today, well, on Saturday, on Grand Final Day, we could see something similar. I mean, we're going to watch a city divided in half for the A-League showpiece event, and I think. We've seen active supports do big things before. Melbourne Victory's fans are definitely going to have some sort of march. Wouldn't surprise me if Melbourne City's fans do something similar. I think what we're going to see is almost, a complete takeover of, the league in Melbourne, and especially that Swan Street district that's sort of become famous for its nightlife and for particularly for its football fans that sort of march through. And I think it's going to be an incredible event, not just to be a part of if you've got a ticket, but regardless of if you haven't got a ticket. I think the whole city is going to sort of become just its own little spectacle for today. And I think it's just going to be an absolutely incredible day for the A Leagues and for Melbourne sport in general.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm Lucky because I got a Northern Bullants game at 11:30 in the morning, and it's actually good timing for it to be so early because I can get the rest of the day and I can get to Amy Park nice and early. I don't think either of us are going to be leaving it late. It's been we've been to some at Amy Park this year. We've been to some really high profile games. We've been to ones where there's not much of a queue. This one, I think definitely you should get there very, very early. It's not going to be easy to get into, but that's what you want. That is ultimately what you want for a grand final, or really for most A-League games anyway. But that should be fantastic. Now, looking at the finals performances, and I know you're not too fond of City in recent days. We might be able to say. I'm not sure if anyone's guessed that, but we talk about victory first. How they've managed to get here. They've been up in the top six really for all of the year. They've been, I think, fairly consistent in that. When you had Auckland dominating for so long, and you had these patches where, I think Adelaide United came up at one point and then dropped down, and we saw what happened with them. But they've been really good and I think consistent in terms of ladder position for the whole year. Going to New Zealand, winning 2-0, 2-1 on aggregate. That was remarkable. That was a very, very solid performance. And I guess the question is, what went wrong for Auckland? Was it just lack of finals experience?
I mean, there's probably a lot of questions about what happened to Auckland in the finals. Obviously, that again, I think everyone in around the A-League circles sort of came into this, fully expecting Auckland to, I mean, if not win, at least be pretty thoroughly one of the more compelling teams in the finals. And I think what we got in the end maybe could come down to a lack of experience. Maybe it could have come down to, lack of preparedness, supposedly. I mean, I think one thing that you've always got to note, which is that knockout football and finals football or finals in any sport, it's a completely different ball game to the regular season. We saw that Auckland were incredible for most parts of for the regular season, but you have to remember every finals game is a one-off from there, and we've seen in one-off circumstances throughout the season where Auckland have maybe stumbled, and I think. Maybe this was one of this was one of those games. It was a one-off game where maybe the team didn't come with perhaps, full preparedness to, take it on. And I think and well, that's kind of how finals works. Not everyone loves finals in football, but, you stumble for one game and that's really it. But ultimately, look, will they leave the season with not what they, will they leave the season with probably less than they wanted to show? You could argue that. I mean, they still got the premiership, probably a better measure of how good they were for the whole year. But yeah, I think next season they're definitely going to come back. They're going to be itching and just striving for that, the A-League championship.
Well, I mean, you're right about those one-off stumbles. I mean, we saw you especially saw when they lost to Western earlier in the year, and it's just things like that where all of a sudden you get these losses, and look again, mind you, of course, it's two games in this semi-final. They did have the advantage on aggregate going into it, which again kind of makes victories win doing it in 90 minutes. Pretty comprehensive in the end. Look, I'll say this again, coming in certainly not as a long time traditionalist. I mean, I like finals. I think it's really good the way it's done. I think the structure has been exciting. I think it's been a really good final series. Minus again, with respect to you guys, the Western Sydney City games, which were at the end of the day, they happened, they occurred, they were games that happened at the end of the day. There's not much to say. It was fairly easy for City to get in, and I know wasn't too much of high expectation of Western last Saturday. Good that it wasn't an uncompetitive game, certainly, despite the final aggregate, wasn't it?
I mean, yeah, last week obviously it ended 1-1 on the night. Realistically, you take that game on its own, and it was yeah, fairly competitive game in the end. Obviously, Western it's Western's first result against City the whole year. So I mean, coming into the final season, obviously maybe Western probably a bit to be desired, but again, City is a team that always have had an upper edge against Western United for a long time now. Obviously, I mean Western never didn't even get close to beating them both times in the regular season. And I think, yeah, obviously, first leg, 3-0 down. Obviously, it was never going to be easy to sort of come back from that, obviously. And I think, yeah, if you really take it, a 1-1 result on the night really isn't too horrible, but again, it wasn't the best performance over the in the first leg, and realistically, they were playing for pride at that point. And did they leave that game with pride? You could argue so. You could argue they'll come back next season with maybe something out of that, but in the end, yeah, not the performance they needed in the first half and that in the first leg, and that made the second leg much more difficult. So yeah, look, fair play to City. I think if you take all things considered, Melbourne City were easily the most consistent team, bar maybe Auckland all season. I mean, they've had plenty of struggles, which I'm sure we'll get into eventually, but to find themselves where they are now, you can't say that it's not deserved by Melbourne City. I mean, when you look at how they played throughout the whole season, I mean, they absolutely deserve to be here. So it's going to be an absolutely entertaining game when you absolutely factor that both teams really do deserve to be here when you consider how they got in.
Yeah, and you're right. Let's talk about City there. They've had injuries all year. They've got a lot of youth in their team, which again, that has, I think, helped them throughout the year in many regards. Questions, of course, we raise. Is this grand final pressure going to be too much? Maybe, maybe not. I think, given that they've already been in a lot of high-profile games, I think that does help the side that's going to be put out on Saturday night. Where do you see City's real strengths going into this against, of course, a team that again, and you look at it just on the ladder. We're not talking about first versus sixth here. I mean, these have been very very evenly matched up for a lot of the year.
I mean, yeah, just looking through, it's hard to look past City and maybe their caliber of playing in big games. I mean, it goes without saying, this is not the first Melbourne Derby of the year. They've already done this twice. There's already been two encounters or three encounters, I believe, actually, based off of my counting. And I mean, this is a team that's they're used to big games. They're used to the spotlight on them. They've already been in, I believe, four previous grand finals. I mean, yeah, this City team is one that's pretty well equipped to playing these big games. Obviously, like you mentioned, it's mostly youth-oriented squad, so perhaps a good majority of the squad haven't really come into this, having experienced the grand final before. But they'll look at the veterans. They'll look at the players that have been around for a while. They'll look at them. Those are players that have played in these big games before. They know the expectations, and realistically, it's a cliche, but they'll all want to go into it looking like expect just treating it like any other game. I mean, that's how you're supposed to treat these games, really, if you want the best chance to succeed. It's how they've treated every game every season. They've been a very professional outfit, Melbourne City, and I think arguably you could argue they're the most prepared for this based on just their past record of playing in these grand finals, playing in these derbies, and I think they're going to be prepared for the spotlight to shine on them on Saturday. And I mean, given time, it's probably where they're going to thrive. And if it's not this season, I think sooner or later we'll see these young stars just thrive on a big stage. And well, we'll know for sure based off of Saturday and based off of future results, whether they're prepared for that.
Yeah, we will know. Victory, and maybe not so much for Victory fans themselves, but may have gotten just a bit overlooked that they had a coaching change like 5 months ago, mid-season, and they're now in a position where they are, potentially 90 minutes off being the A-League men champions. It's been an extraordinary, extraordinary season for them. They have had, some solid games, some pretty awful games as well. But again, to be in the position where they are is real credit to the side that they were able to put together.
But yeah, that coaching change 5 months ago. I mean, that feels like almost 5 years ago now with how their season has panned out. I mean, yeah, you look at it. I mean, obviously, a couple of weird spells. Obviously, when that first coaching change occurred, they didn't go through the best run of form, going through, I believe it was 6 games without a win. But yeah, they've caught fire near the end of this season now. They've started to really look the part, and I mean, yeah, you look at how they've played in recent weeks. You could argue they've played of some very big games, some very difficult games. You look at the game against Auckland, goes without saying. Obviously, they had to go away to Western Sydney Wanderers as well, which is obviously Parramatta's a difficult place to get a win, especially with the atmosphere that they had that night. You look at, you know, just how this team is shaped up. And the one that comes back to me is, the big win against Adelaide United in the original rivalry just 2 months back, a 5-3 win against, their arch against one of their arch rivals, one of their many arch rivals. I mean,
Who isn't?
it just goes to show this team has caught absolute fire, and they've just started to make it work out for them. And I think they've just gotten good at the right times, and they're jumping into this grand final. I mean, confident, and it's largely the same squad that played Central Coast Mariners last season. So I think this is a chance to right the wrongs of last season, and I think they'll be very excited to take it on and to especially play against their rivals as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, if there wasn't a personal factor enough with those players, the fact that they're going up against City really just adds to that. I reckon though, and I wonder if you agree or disagree with this, but I would say Victory has the momentum going into this. They are again coming off beating 2-0 on the night, Auckland in Auckland. That's not an easy feat by any stretch. Not an easy feat. City, while comprehensive in the first leg of the semi-final against Western United, again 1-1 on the night. It was not, a perfect performance in any regard. Not that they needed to go crazy, of course, on the night. Again, they had the lead on aggregate comfortably, of course. But Victory has come off a really, really solid finals run. I think the momentum would be in their favour.
I mean, yeah, I think there's probably a lot of interesting perspectives to take on who's got more momentum. I mean, yeah, you could argue Victory have the momentum, having defeated arguably the better team, and in more difficult circumstances. But at the same time, I think the other way you could look at it is City have had a much easier, much cruisier route when you consider it. I mean, Victory have played 2 games away from home. They've had to go up to New South Wales. They've had to go to Western Sydney, which is one of the hardest places to play. And even then, they had to go to Auckland as well. They've had to cross international borders to, get their way in, which is one way you can look at it. And meanwhile, City, obviously, they finished second. They had to buy the first round, and then they proceeded to have what was in practice 2 home legs against Western United at Amy Park. They've done next to no travel. So, I mean, there's plenty of ways you could look at it. Obviously, Victory, yes, they've probably played the better teams. You could argue they're coming in with with much more momentum and confidence than City. But City also haven't travelled. You'd argue they may be more rested up. They're probably better prepared to take on the game, probably less fatigue. And I mean, they're both interesting perspectives to take. Whichever one is correct, I'm not sure. I'm sure we'll find out eventually. But realistically, both teams come in with their own sort of momentum into this game, and I think both teams have their own reasons to be rightly confident on Saturday night.
And City's going to be very comfortable with Amy Park, given as you just said, they've had back-to-back weeks there. They haven't had to go over to New Zealand and deal with Auckland there. So you're right, it has been cruising. I think they've cruised really the whole season. They've been looking comfortable the entire year, which again is a credit to them. I do want to get your prediction though, because again I don't think no one's anticipating a giant drubbing one way or another. I think it's going to be tight, but I want to know. I want to get the can you win official prediction here. What do you reckon?
I mean, look, I'll be completely honest. I mean, it's no, I'm a West United fan. My feelings on both teams probably aren't that great, but look, realistically, no matter how you put it, this is going to be an incredible game. It's going to be one that's going to be pushed, in my opinion, to the full 90, if not 120 plus penalty kicks. You know, it's going to be a game that goes the long distance if it needs, which is why, in my head, I mean, I just can't look past the City team at the moment. I think they're just an incredible team. Look, I think they've got what it takes to get it done. They've been arguably the most consistent team all season here in this grand final, and I think just they haven't in my head they just haven't travelled, and I think they're going to be better rested up to take the challenge. And
Well,
yeah, in my
Auckland was
head, I
pretty
think it's
consistent, and what just happened to them? Surprises happen.
surprises do happen, which is why I'm fully prepared to, eat my words, and I'm fully prepared to see Victory lift that toilet seat on Saturday. But I mean, I think I'm fairly certain that I think there's something that gives City a slight edge. Whatever it is, I think something gives City a slight edge here. But I'm excited to, I'd be excited to eat my own words on Saturday. I'd be excited to be correct on Saturday, because regardless, I think both teams come in prepared and confident based off their own reasons. But there's just something in my head that's sort of making me go, I think City's the one. But realistically, I think both teams have, what it takes to, take it home on Saturday night.
Yeah, I'd put it at 50-50 odds, regardless. And look, I'm not good with predictions. I think we figured that out by now. So, I don't want to anger one side or another if I jinx them through this. Look, I would agree. I think this is going to go past 90 minutes easily. I think penalties is honestly, I think that would be um, the perfect ending to this season, having it that close by the end of it. Forget all the talk about Auckland's domination. Having it that close would be amazing in a derby, of course, because naturally you can have and I think the one in February was a draw if my memory's right. So yeah, you can have the derbies, but this one has to have a winner. This one has to have a conclusion. So look, I mean, my ideal game as firmly a neutral here, despite what some will allege, is 2-2 after 9 minutes. I reckon push it to 3-3 in extra time and then penalties, and then we'll see what happens. But I can't split them. I cannot split them. I think I would argue victory has more of a momentum, but City has just been so cruisy for the whole season, and that's another credit to them. So I really, really can't split them here. But we shall see. We will be there. Shezza will be there. It's my first Melbourne Derby going to, so I'm very, very eager to see that unfold. Now, on the other side of football, on the round ball game, we were both at Doherty Cup matches last night. You were at Avondale, Manningham United. I was at South Melbourne, Pascoe Vale. I'll start with my game. Extraordinary finish. I thought it was going into extra time. For those who weren't watching, you can see it on screen. Pascoe Vale reasonably early gets a goal. Pascoe Vale's a VPL2 side, mind you. So, we're not talking about NPL versus MPL. Pascoe Vale, very, very young side, but very, very well done throughout the night. South goal, 80th minute. 5 minutes out of time. 5 minutes. 94 minutes, 30 seconds, or 35, something like 20 seconds left. South goal. Absolutely just a stunning game. Great atmosphere, despite a smaller crowd because it's a Tuesday night. I don't rag on South fans for that, of course. But that was fantastic. This comes off, of course, a South Melbourne NPL win against the original derby there against the Melbourne Knights. Mind you, they were one place apart in the relegation zone. I think South is 11th now, so they're just outside of it. Does South have a bit of momentum now? Because relegation is, I mean, it still is a very realistic possibility for them, but that's 2 wins on the trot, mind you, in different comps. Can't be angry about that.
Yeah, wins are wins, and you take them, whether it's 3 points for the league or it's just, moving through to the next round of the cup. You take them. You absolutely do take them. Obviously, look, coming into this week of NPL, we will see, whether they can get a result out of victory on Sunday. That will be, an absolutely massive and exciting game for sure. But regardless, I mean, yeah, obviously not they didn't do it in the best of fashion last night. On Tuesday, obviously not the prettiest result, but when it's cup football and it's knockout football, someone's got to win, and if you're willing to scrap for it, you'll get the result, and that's what South did, and ultimately, well, they got it done, and sometimes that's all you need to do, and I'm sure it'll be worth something to them. It'll be worth something at least to the players who are aware they've got the capacity to win, and they'll be aware that that's what they've got to do for the rest of the season if they want survival in this and if they want that confidence going into obviously the championship, into the national stage.
And just quickly, less of a maybe scrappy game that you were at last night. Fairly, some may use the word boring. In the end, talk to us about it because you were there with Shezza.
Yeah, obviously. So Avondale, who are famously probably one of the better teams in NPL Victoria, and Manningham United in Victorian Premier League One. Uh, Not much you can say about it. Professional job done at BT Connor Reserve. Obviously, played out there because Avondale liked issues at their ground, but regardless, yeah, it's a professional job done. I believe that was a hat trick from a player in the end. I'm just trying to get the statistics up. I can't remember, but yeah, pretty much. Yeah, a fairly comprehensive and professional job done by Avondale. They'll move through to the national round, or not to the national round, to the seventh, to the round of to round seven, the quarterfinals of the Doherty Cup. That is against obviously Dandenong Thunder, which will be an exciting matchup. And yeah, I mean. can't say much about it. It was can't fault the performance. They Avenel played well, got the win they needed, and yeah, they're through.
Yeah, win is a win, as you just said. And look, just finally, it has been a bit of a soccer special this episode. But a really big move in the Australian Ice Hockey League, AIHL, this week. It's garnered a bit of media attention, so it'll garner ours as well regarding the Canberra Brave. And look, I've seen some of the videos of the transformation that they've actually undergone. It's pretty extraordinary. Tell us more.
Okay, yeah. I mean, this is probably one of the most exciting moves we've seen in the AHL for a long time that doesn't involve a player. I mean, yeah, obviously the Canberra Brave, starting this weekend, will be playing out of the Australian Institute of Sports arena. Obviously, we've seen the Brave before. They're a super exciting team. They've always pulled these great attendances at the Philip Hunter Ice Skating Centre out there in Canberra, and obviously, if you've seen the rink before, if you've been to the rink before, it is, with all due respect, a bit dated for sure. But regardless, it was packed out week by week, by passionate Brave fans, passionate Canberrans who want to see their ice hockey. And I think now they're playing out of this AIS arena, which if you haven't seen, which I'm sure Leo will put up on the screen now, it's an absolutely incredible facility. It rivals almost those in the United States in Triple A hockey, in major junior hockey in Canada, those sort of things. In college hockey, it's an incredible facility. It's a 2,000 seater. I believe it's sold out for this weekend's games. And I mean, regardless of how you look at it, it's a great thing to have, professional facilities or at least high class, world class facilities, for the AIHL. And, to especially have, especially as something that adds to the fan sort of what's the word I'm looking for? The fan
Experience?
experience. I mean, to sit in a proper arena, yes, to sit in a proper arena, sort of looking down on the ice. It does add a lot to the fan experience. It adds a lot to the game, and I think most people, or at least everyone in the ice hockey sphere, will be keeping an eye on this because it will be an exciting move. And I think there are definitely other teams around the league who will, seeing this, they'll definitely consider making similar moves, or at least weighing it up because it's a great move for the league and a great move for the Canberra Brave, 100%.
I think that's how it's been titled as well. I mean, they're talking about the North American experience. Of course, anyone thinks ice hockey, they think really North America, or at least a lot of people do. I certainly do. And for again those who are, because the AIHL knows that it's not the biggest league in the country in terms of sporting competitions. But I've really found myself following it just in recent times. I know you've certainly followed for some time. I know you've kind of hammered me and Sheza to follow it a lot more, and I'll be going to a game soon, I hope. But again, for casuals, you talk about having that experience. I mean, it just looks amazing. And if it's packed out, that is the exact atmosphere you want. We're kind of circling back to what we were just talking about with A-League crowds, but that's the atmosphere you want at the ice hockey. And that should just be huge, not for just this weekend, but for the rest of the season.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like I said, they were packing out the old Philip Hunter Ice Skating Center. Sorry, it's a mouthful. But they were packing that out, and obviously that was an incredible that was an incredible rink. But you know, it's going to look absolutely incredible in this AIS arena. I mean, it is absolutely a world class facility. It's one that I think if you're in Canberra, you absolutely must check out. And I think everyone will be excited to see how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to seeing that. We'll catch up with all the highlights from that. Naturally, though, we will be focusing a lot on the A-League Men Grand Final this weekend. Good luck for those who are City or Vuck fans. And we are very, very excited to see this unfold. I will be there. You will be there. Shez will be there. It should be a fantastic game and a really fantastic atmosphere. But we'll cover that all next week. Sheza should be back. Actually, well, maybe not. We'll figure out what's going on there. But in the meantime, thank you all for watching. And of course, you can watch all the latest highlights from Sportswatch anytime on our YouTube channel. And of course, full A-League Men Grand Final coverage will be on Six News throughout the day, streaming 24/7 in our regular news bulletins on Sunday. Thanks everyone for watching.